What's going on again, guys? First Sergeant V here, back with part 2 of our First Sergeant series, and this video is entitled Why Be a First Sergeant, right? So these are my top 5 reasons on why I wanted to be a First Sergeant. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get started. Alright, so like I said, these are my top 5 reasons that I want to be a first sergeant, right? So I'm going to start from 1 through 5. Lead, develop soldiers, standards and discipline, the tradition, the prestige, the responsibility that I hold true to me, alright? So lead soldiers, right? So like I said, first sergeants lead soldiers and NCOs. And with that being said, like, officers are a responsibility too, right? There's a reason why they team up your platoon leaders, platoon sergeants, your commanders and your first sergeants and each level echelon, right? There's a reason. For me, this is the most important task as a first sergeant, is to lead and develop people. Like I said, man, we set the example, we assign tasks, we handle discipline issues, we take care of the soldier issues, and we support their subordinates. So it's easy when you have 50 to 200 soldiers to support. You can see how this can be a challenging task, right? So you have to sacrifice a lot of your time to take care of your personnel and your unit. But at the same time, you got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. I guess first sergeants are normally the assassins of leadership. We're the tip of the spear, right? So we are the highest enlisted in our unit. So with that comes a lot of responsibility, a lot of professional growth. You got to be able to make sure that you can carry yourself a certain way, that you know how to talk to people, and take every scenario and situation differently, right? Develop soldiers, right? So you can develop your subordinates, right? So developing your subordinates, this is our ultimate goal. When I come to work every day, my goal is to train the guy to take my job. My days are numbered in the Army, but what I do and how I can influence and develop the next generation of leaders, that's what I hold true. That's what's really important to me. Like I said, you can leave a favorable impression on your young soldiers and teach them what right looks like, right? I know growing up, going through the ranks for myself, hey, I had some good leaders and I had some bad leaders. But even the bad leaders, I learned something from, right? So you always find a leader, or anyone you come across in the military or in the Army, you can see what you can take and what will work from that person, right? So just keep that in mind. Relationships, you can create mentorship programs, you can do counselings. We're going to get more into the mentorship and counselings in a further series, but for me, I'm a people person. I love spending one-on-one time with my subordinates to help them realize their potential, right? So a lot of this younger generation, and I'm sure you guys see it, is they don't know their potential. Like they don't see the big picture. But it's our job to develop them to see the big picture. So that's a key role to being a first sergeant, is getting them to see the big picture. And like I said, you're not only guiding them, but you're guiding their families as well. Because with standards and discipline and the decisions they make is going to affect their family life. And a rule of thumb, or what I've used in the past in my units, is happy life. You know, you gotta have a happy life, and that starts at home too. So you have to be able to give your leaders and subordinates the time that they need to be that person that the family needs them to be. So discipline. This is probably the most important out of the top 5 reasons I wanted to be a first sergeant. So standards and discipline. So like, I've been in a lot of units where standards and discipline has been great, and then I've been in some units where standards and discipline was just, it was beyond what you would expect from soldiers and leaders, right? So standards and discipline. Establishing and enforcing standards and discipline is the key to an organization's overall success. It should be treated in such a way that every member of the organization understands those standards and that are committed individually and collectively to those standards. All right. So, like I said, you need to make the standards known right from the start. You know, the level of discipline affects the soldier's conduct. It affects every aspect of the military life. Right. Military discipline also imposes upon officers and other ranks. It's our code of conduct. How we operate, how we conduct our business. Right. It's really important. So as leaders, especially as first sergeants, we must, right, clearly communicate and meet standards that are desirable, measurable, meaning, and achievable, right? So if you follow those four things, desirable or describable, measurable, meaningful, and achievable, you're good to go, right? Uphold the standards and develop discipline through face-to-face coaching, counseling, mentoring. Like I said, you can't coach, mentor, teach from behind a desk. You have to get out of your comfort zone, right? Demonstrate discipline in performing right actions, right? Taking situational ownership and assuming accountability for results. You have to hold people accountable, right? And that's for the good and bad, right? Understand that discipline is a positive way the Army practices its profession, right? We have to be a disciplined force. If we're disciplined here in garrison, we will be disciplined when we go to war, right? Demonstrate personal excellence and pride through standards and discipline. For example, right, properly wearing the uniform, right, in accordance with AR 670-1. If you can wear the uniform right, if you can get a haircut, that to me is important. If a soldier can do the bare minimum or do what is expected of him, that's your building blocks of what you can actually achieve and reach that potential of that leader. So standards, right? Standards are formal and they're detailed instructions. Like I talked about, they're describable, measurable, and achievable, right? Standards are established at level or quantity of excellence that must be attained. So you have to let your subordinates and leaders know what is expected of them. This is how we operate, okay? So there's many ways we can do this. Like these are our norms. This is how we practice. This is how we do our day-to-day operations. This is how you fill a truck. This is how you conduct maintenance operations, supply operations, all the basic stuff, right? Like I was talking about, standards are expressed in federal law, DOD, Army policy, directive, regulations, doctrine, publications, unit policies, SOPs, right? So every soldier should know what is expected of them at the company level and battalion level and so forth. There's a reason why we have SOPs. There's a reason why we have policy letters, directives. They need to be made aware of these and actually be trained on these so that they know and we groom them the right way. Not just the wing missions or just get the job done, but we do it safe without harming our equipment, our personnel. But we follow our procedures and we train people with our procedures and our SOPs. Every soldier will conduct the same task the same way, which is pretty much the idea of an SOP, right? Standards assign appropriate responsibility and delegate authority, right? So I'm going to do another series on delegation of authority and how to do it, but you have to want your personnel and your leaders to surpass your expectations, surpass the standards, right? So yeah, we have a standard, but there's nothing saying you can't exceed that standard. That's what separates the good from the bad. Discipline. Discipline is the fundamental about how we practice our profession, right? Effectively, ethically, and with character. If you follow those three things, you'll never be in trouble, right? Discipline is behavior tempered by high standards of conduct and performance, right? Discipline at the individual level is the ability to control one's own behavior and willing to do what is right. So what I mean by that is if you can influence your personnel and implement what you want them to do and train them right, and they have a good role model, someone to follow, they're going to fall in line with this. They're always going to do what is right. They're always going to have that voice in their head saying, hey, this is not what we're supposed to be doing, right? Discipline reflects our commitment to policies, procedures, constant with Army ethics, right? So like I said, if you're committed, if you give them a reason to come to work and explain to them that what you bring to the table, what you bring to the fight, and what you have to offer this organization, you're going to have your discipline, right? Discipline often requires attending organizational administrative details, right? So this is where you're talking about your maintenance, your supply, your training management, your property accountability, coaching, counseling, mentoring. They're all essential effectiveness and efficiency and effectiveness. So we have to be able to master our craft, master what we do. Discipline, right, when properly established and practiced, reflect in the decision to do what is right. Like I said before, right? This is especially so in face of temptation, obstacles, adversity, frustration, fatigue, fear, or where it matters the most. Every one of us has some type of adversity, frustration, fatigue that's going on in our lives, right? But we have to be able to see that and recognize that we're not going to compromise who we are, our moral character, our integrity, right? it's the hallmark of our profession. We have to do what's right, standards and discipline, and it starts with the basics, right? Set us apart and build the trust and the bedrock of our foundation, and an enabler for mission command. So if you got standards and discipline, your mission command, and the way you influence and carry out orders and carry out missions, objectives, it's all going to fall into place. We're going to get into that when we talk about mission command. Army professionals must ensure standards are desirable, measurable, and achievable. Like I said before, right? Desirable or describable, measurable, and achievable. We have to make sure that that is correct. So my next one is tradition, right? So for me, growing up, I always wanted to be a first sergeant. Since I was a private, nothing else I ever wanted was to get that diamond. So I've met my expectations myself, and now I have to exceed my expectations. But the tradition of the first sergeant is a proud tradition dating back many, many years. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about the NCO Corps and the history of the first sergeant and all that. But you're part of a time-honored tradition that many great leaders have participated in. You should feel honored for that, right? Like I said, not everybody gets to be a first sergeant, and not everybody needs to be a first sergeant. There's some leaders out there that, hey, they need to do what they do but not be a first sergeant, right? Let's be honest. But being a first sergeant takes a very special individual. You can't be selfish. You have to be able to place the needs of others above your own. You got to, right? For me, it's the best feeling in the world. You're adding to the legacy of the NCO Corps and future leaders and generations of soldiers and their families. So you should be honored to be a first sergeant. And then the prestige, right? So everybody knows this. When a first sergeant enters the room, it gets people's attention, right? It seems like all eyes are on you, right? First sergeants are respected highly by officers, NCO juniors, and enlisted soldiers alike. To me, it is the most highly regarded rank in the Army. This is like the last level that you actually get that face-to-face, that time with that soldiers, and then actual ability to lead, develop, mentor, coach them throughout their careers, not only through their military careers, but even with our soldiers that get out of the Army. You have to be able to give them what is owed to them, and that's outstanding leadership. We have to be able to do that. And this reflects the respect the military personnel have towards duty positions and ranks, right? Your example for others to follow. Your actions and words reflect points of view of military leaders and those around you. So as a first sergeant, you have to watch what you say. You can't just be, oh man, screw this mission, I ain't doing this is stupid. The soldiers see that and they feed off you. You're the lifeblood of the unit. So when they see the first sergeant's frustrated or hasn't bought into a program or a certain mission or objective, or it doesn't care about the commander's intent, that's going to bleed over to your soldiers, your NCOs. You have to be able to back up your leaders so that your soldiers will back you up and return back them up. You have to be that leader to own a task. You'll never hear me, and this is just First Sergeant Valora talking, but you're never going to hear me talk about, the commander says do this, or Sergeant Major said we got to do this. No. When someone gives me information, I own it. Hey, we're doing this because I said we're doing this. This is why we're doing this. Explain it to them. But at that, sometimes you may not have the time to actually explain everything at the correct time, right? So just keep that in mind. Like, there's nothing wrong with doing AAR or saying, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. This is what happened. This is the reason why we did it. What can we do better? What did we do correct? You have to be able to do that thing. You have to be able to adapt. But most importantly, the prestige, right? So the ability to influence others is not to be taken lightly. So like I was talking about, if you walk into work every day all pissed off, mad at the world, you're going to feel it in the culture of your unit. You have to be able to separate. I know for me, when I'm having a bad day, I normally close my door, take like 5 minutes, take a breather, relax. If I'm having a bad day with family stuff, before I come to work, I'll sit in my car, I'll do something to get my mind right before I have to go in front of these leaders and soldiers and lead them and give them the leadership that they deserve. So lastly, responsibility. When you look at a first sergeant duties responsibilities, right, you'll quickly discover that we have a huge responsibility, right? probably more than any ordinary person could actually handle, right? So just a few, we're handling pay issues, individual training, discipline, or recognizing awards, and that's recognizing soldiers. That's your awards, your NCOERs, your leave forms, your pay, your morale, right? Esprit de corps. There's so many duties and responsibilities that we have. Like, one of the greatest responsibilities we have, like I've said before, is leadership and professional development of their soldiers, right? Especially non-commissioned officer development, grooming of enlisted soldiers for promotion, right? That is extremely important. We have to groom these next generation of soldiers and leaders. So other areas that we manage daily is all administrative issues come through us, right? Recommend and prepare soldiers specialty leadership schools, re-enlistment, career development, promotable soldiers within the company. First sergeants are the first step in disciplinary actions, such as Article 15's proceedings. First sergeant may place a soldier under arrest or restriction of quarters in certain cases. So you need to understand that you have a lot of responsibility, but we also have a lot of power. But you have to balance it. Manage the daily responsibilities of running the company and unit. Everything that happens in that unit is on us, right? So yes, the commander's there, but the commander is not charged with running day-to-day operations. NCOs run operations. We do it. So we have to keep that in mind. So that is my top 5 on being reasons why I became a first sergeant. So I hope this was helpful. Hope you're enjoying the series so far. Once we get through these first couple series, we're going to get into the what to tackle first. We're going to start talking about the standards and discipline and stuff. But hope you like this video. Stay tuned sometime in the future for the next portion. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And as always, go ordinary.